What makes an ad resonate in 2022? Sometimes it's a TV show from the early 2000s, and sometimes it's just listening to the young creatives in the room. We talked with the CEO of Commonwealth, McCann, to find out more. Grant, thank you for joining us. I want to jump right in. What has been the biggest change you've seen in terms of advertisements themselves over the past 2 years?
Particularly us. We've taken a new look at how we create as a starting point. We focus directly into culture, and in order to do that, we have to start with data. I think data is infusing into our creativity much, much more now than ever.
When it comes to an economic, I'll call it a downturn, your customer base is of course experiencing inflation on a daily basis. How do you navigate that?
In our business in particular, we're leaning heavily into EVs. So EVs just in general are sort of landing in market now, and it's a much more positive message than I think we've had before.
With EVs though, you have a pretty big competitor with Tesla. How do you differentiate?
Well, what's interesting about Tesla is they have really only two nameplates. Our clients, Chevrolet and GM, their strategy is to go after as many nameplates as they possibly can. So we're really looking to choice for customers, and also we tend to focus on in the middle of the country. So the coasts are obviously very, very competitive from an EV perspective, but middle of the country, we've got pretty much anything you can think of in terms of choice.
I'm curious about the platforms you use to reach your consumers, and I wonder how that differs from the coasts. Do you find that when you're reaching customers in Middle America that they're leaning more into, TikTok versus TV versus Instagram? Which platform is most successful for you?
I'd say culturally, TV still matters. It matters a lot. But, I think TikTok is an interesting channel. It's interesting because it connects you into culture quite quickly.
Have you ever had a creative in a room who's completely changed your thinking on a campaign while doing a pitch or showing you a deck?
Yes. So you may remember the Dr. Evil spot from the Super Bowl. I was not convinced. I was not a Dr. Evil fan, but the creative who pitched the idea spent almost a week training on how to speak like Dr. Evil. And that was the kicker. I mean, it just literally sold the idea round one.
Wow. Gentlemen, our takeover of General Motors is complete.
But the most favorite thing I've done ever in my entire career was the Sopranos spot.
And talk to me about why that was your favorite spot.
So when you speak to a Chevrolet audience, it's pretty broad, right? You go from truck drivers to people driving Corvettes. So how do you tap into something, an idea that covers the broad spectrum of all those drivers? Sopranos was interesting because it wouldn't be the show that you would have thought would be tapping to a younger generation. But as we found out, the pandemic opened up a whole new audience for The Sopranos. So you had the super fans, you had people here that were just entering into The Sopranos and starting to experiment with it. And you had folks who hadn't watched in 10 years that just absolutely fell in love with the spot. So it allowed you to do interesting things with that.
Was that part of your thinking and sort of green-lighting the idea that it hits so many ages?
Absolutely. I mean, there was I think it was a New York Times article that said, why is every young person in America watching The Sopranos? And it was like, bing, it was just one of those moments where you're like, that's it, that's what we have to do.